We thank the nominee for that assurance. We shall be watching critically to ensure that there is nothing to show ethnicity, because we are all against that kind of behavior.
Honorable, that's your last opportunity.
Oh, I have one more. It's follow-up.
Please, this is the fifth question you're asking. So 2 are follow-ups, but please, this is your last question.
Yeah,
Please
the last
proceed.
one. The last one is about, it's taken from his critique of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Bill. And in it, he said that, I am fortified in the belief that the attempt to pull a fast one on Ghanaians by the insertion of Clause 3.4 of the bill to negate the fight against corruption is the work of a strong and powerful cabal within the government. I hope he remembers that. We want to know, maybe you might not mention this, but who are these powerful cabals? And how do you intend to counteract the activities of this powerful cabal within the government? Because if these people are so strong to even influence the bill to their advantage, you are going to a position where these people may have a leeway. How are you going to deal with this cabal? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I was writing upon credible intelligence. You know, intelligence is not necessarily evidence. And I'm happy that because of the manner in which I wrote it, civil society were able to convince Parliament to remove the fact that we are only to prosecute, or the special prosecutors prosecute only corruption of a certain magnitude. So that when somebody steals plantain, he can go for 5 years. And yet when somebody takes 200,000 for a bribe, he can walk away. I think I achieved that objective. If anybody, I've said it time without number, commits a corruption offense, I will not see him as a member of a political party. I will see him as a suspected criminal. Pure and simple. And that's how I would deal with the fellow. Crime is crime, and the president repeated it. Crime is crime without political correlation. And that is how the office will be dealt with, will be supervised if I am approved. Indeed, as I've said, the fact that you know me, if you come to talk to me about it, I may order your arrest, because under Section 239, trying to directly or indirectly influence the special prosecutor as a public officer is corruption. Many Ghanaians don't know that. So we'll try to be as impartial as possible, as humanly as possible. We are going to try to be the moral compass, and will be the gatekeepers, so that nobody will say the ask is casting one way. You know, so the best thing is, if the office is set up, stop it. If you don't stop it, and the law gets with you, and it's so serious in the national interest to prosecute you, and you don't offer to say, I've sinned, I will pay, who will prosecute you? I hope I've answered your question.
Very well. Now, Honorable Minister for Defense.
Thank you very much. Don't create more trouble. First of all, let me thank the nominee. I think I've been listening to him this morning, and to me he appears very consistent with his views. So let me congratulate you first on your nomination. Your nomination was one of the things that, apart from maybe football and the military, that received the broad support of every Ghanaian. And so I think that it was very good for me and for you and for the people of Ghana that this novel and uncharted waters, your nomination received a lot of support, even though some people had issues with it. I'll leave that to their conscience. But There's just this little issue that I wanted you to correct, but I will not ask you to correct. I just listen to me, and then I'll move on with my questions. It has to do with a joke that we all thought was permissible in Ghana, the Bulsa way. Until this morning, I thought it was very permissible. In fact, I've used it several times. If I was not in this vetting, I may have used it on somebody else. It could have created a problem for me. So I thought it was really a joke that normally Ghanaians, especially widows from the north, would joke. I know that halfway in the same district is generated in one of the schools, oh, the Bulsa way and that kind of stuff. So really, I thought it was a joke until this morning. Maybe you were also joking, so I'll leave it at that. But, Mr. Chairman, like I said, the Gatis have and Frafras have this doc thing they always fight about, and Concombes and the Mobes, the B-Mobes, that British Mobile have this issue of cowtail, this man. Gonjas and Frafras. I always thought that it's like that, but I'll leave it at that. And maybe one day we'll talk about it over a pot of pito. But, Mr. Chairman, let me read a quotation from one of his papers. I want to know whether it is attributable to him before I ask a question. It is a quote. The Constitution has clearly delineated the type of public officers who shall be appointed by the President with the approval of Parliament. Public officers in the category of special prosecutor do not fall under that category. It is unconstitutional for Parliament to partake in the approval, and it is the exclusive appointment powers of the President. Is it really something that you wrote and you stand by it now, that you think that Parliament should not vet you and that only the President should do that?
I wrote it in the 25-page critique. It is there, and if you remember, at the beginning, I answered the question myself by saying that I raised it with the President because Parliament was now requiring that the fellow should be of the same conditions as a Court of Appeal judge and be subjected to Parliament, approval by Parliament. And then the issue was, should we throw away the dirty water with the baby? And I said, it is, for me, with the President's own commitment, it was more important to fight the canker than to worry about principles of constitutionality, particularly when the President had called my attention to the fact that once Parliament had passed it, which I knew myself, until the Supreme Court declares it unconstitutional, that is the law. I agreed with him entirely. And I have said to this House that I didn't want anybody to think that it was because I may be afraid of vetting. That was why I wrote it. That's why I'm subjecting myself to your vetting. It wasn't, I was writing this as a matter of constitutional law, which I thought. But Parliament thought otherwise. The President is not the Supreme Court. I am not the Supreme Court. As I indicated, President Trump minuted that a law he was signing was unconstitutional, yet he signed it.
Thank you very much. That was your view. Maybe that's not your view today, so let's move on. Parliament has thought otherwise, so you are complying with it. The other issue, Mr. Chairman, that I wanted the nominee to look at is the current practice that we have in Ghana of newspaper trials. When somebody is accused of any crime, whether it's corruption, it's particularly corruption, the investigative bodies leak, let me use that word, leak the information to the press for the person to first be tried in the newspapers. By the time the person goes to court and have his say, he's totally destroyed. His credibility is gone. In fact, some people have collapsed. Some may have even died, and some have never recovered from the fact that they are prosecuted in the newspapers, they are maligned and insulted. At the end, they are free. But they have no name any longer. They have no credibility any longer. I want to ask you, if this House recommends you and you are approved by the main house, if this committee, and you are approved by the main house and ultimately sworn in by the president, what sort of internal rules will you set in to ensure that this prosecutor's office, special prosecutor's office, that has received broad support from every Ghanaian, does not suffer the fate that we're currently suffering? Just last week, one happened. A similar thing happened. I'll come to that question of the Auditor General's report, because it's a different question. So how are you going to ensure that your office does not follow that same principle of getting information out that we are investigating this person, this is what the person has done, is prosecuted, he's maligned, he's insulted, he may be free, but then he's totally finished. If he has business partners, he has no more credibility any longer. How will you be able to convince us that that's what you will do, will be able to at least do your work and allow the person to have his say in court?
Mr. Chairman, all I can say is that I don't subscribe to people being tried by the press, because every Ghanaian is entitled to presumption of innocence, and it is the responsibility of the prosecution to prove his guilt beyond every reasonable doubt. He has no obligation to prove his innocence. So, if you watch, when I was Deputy Attorney General, Minister of Interior, I scarcely gave press interviews about people's cases, because it's not only unethical, it's unfair. And a reputation one destroyed is difficult to retrieve even when you are acquitted. I think that the question you have asked me, I hope the Ghana Journalists Association is taking note. They are a credible professional organization. I'm a lawyer. I'm telling you what we lawyers think about it. I cannot decide for the Association of Journalists. I think that that matter will have to be taken with them, because the integrity of everybody is important. My office, I can assure you, will try to protect the people we are investigating until we decide we are going to make a charge and charge the fellow. But you see, we are dealing with Law 959, and if you look at it, Parliament decided that the reports should be submitted periodically. When I read it, what is the nature of the report? And when you submit a public report, what happens to the people being investigated? Will it be my office which will be leaking it? Or by complying with law, people who are being investigated are leaked? These are some of the issues we have to think about and see how best we can handle it. But I can assure you that I disagree with people being investigated before they are put to trial, being tried in the press. It is, I believe, unconstitutional.